Hi, this is 365801 and this is a Manga Readathon wrap-up video, and this is for the Spring into Manga Love Readathon that's hosted by Shaegeeksout. She has Manga Love Readathons periodically throughout the year. The last one she did in February I really wanted to do and I didn't get a chance to complete. I picked up a couple books and I thought, right, I'm going to read these, and then other things happened, so I didn't get to, which I was a bit disappointed about. So when the Spring into Manga Love was announced, I was like, yes, I've got time, and I am no longer editing videos, so let's actually sit down and read some. This was between May the 18th and May the 24th, so a nice good chunk of time to sit down and read. And I've been trying to do a lot of readathons lately. I think I've started like Manga Madness I started, and the Tome Topple I started, and a couple of others as well. So I've been like half getting into them, and as things have been lately, as everyone knows, it's not exactly been the best for either productivity or positive mental attitudes and vibes in general. So yeah, I'm really happy that I was actually able to sit down and read and get some of that kind of stress out by reading. Although I'll get into it. It wasn't completely stress relief. But yeah, so I'm really happy that I was able to do some reading for a change, sit down and actually relax. And some of these I was so excited to read. So as you can see, probably at the top, there's a lot of new titles here. Not everything, but almost all of them are fairly new, or at least new acquisitions for me. So I was really excited. So let's just get on into it. So this is the volume that kind of made me end up doing the readathon in the first place, because as soon as it arrived in the post, I just ripped off the plastic and had to read it straight away, as soon as it came. And that is Don't Be Cruel, Volume 8, story and art by Yonezo Nekota, and this is a Sublime title. It has some lovely colour inserts at the start, some lovely colour illustrations, and it really just makes it that they've put the effort into putting these colour illustrations in. This is, I think, an Adrian Beck translation, so yeah, very happy to have this one. Obviously I really could have gotten this a lot sooner, but it was out in October and I already have a volume 8 in Japanese in my house. I read, I know what the story is, so I knew what was going to happen, but actually sitting down and reading it without having to get a Japanese dictionary out just makes the reading experience so much more enjoyable, doesn't it? So yeah, actually being able to relax and enjoy the story for the story is really nice. So I just had to do that as soon as it came. And yeah, it is very angsty, there's a lot more nonsense with Ruka, but Nemugasa and Maya's relationship is obviously the main focal point of the story, and it does develop a bit more, but oh goodness, it's angsty, and it doesn't exactly end on the most positive and uplifting kind of vibe, so you know you're going to need to get volume 9 as soon as you can. And I don't have a volume 9 in Japanese yet, anyway. So yeah, I will need to get volume 9. It will come out this year. When it comes out, I will purchase it and very happily just devour it. I do love her work, I love her art style, I just love these characters because I've been with them for so long and I love them so much. And I really do like Yonezo Nekoto's work. I have almost all of their doujinshi work, I think most of it anyway. Like some of them I bought from the actual comic markets in Japan, and some of them I got when I would go into like Mandarake and get them secondhand, which they were like vastly more expensive. So yeah, I have all of that, and I have lots of character goods and things like this for this series. I do love them. I love Maya. He's just sexy. He's just so hot, just so sexy. So he's definitely one of my fave semis when it comes to, well, I don't rank them, but yeah, he'd be high up there. But I do love Nemugasa as well. He's just a wee cutie pie. So yeah, the story is angsty. It does roll along. There are bits in it that you're like, oh, heartbreaking. But I'm very happy to have this volume. I'm really looking forward to volume 9. So this is the second volume that I read for this readathon, and that is Finder, Beating of My Heart. This is volume 9. Story and art by Ayano Yamane. This is also a Sublime title and also translated by Adrian Beck. So yeah, I have volumes 2 through to volume 7 in this collection, and I have volume 1 and volume 8, or I really should say volume 8 and then volume 1 in my other collection, because they published volume 8 and then they went back to the beginning and started printing volume 1 through to volume 7 to catch up with the series as a title save. And then this is like the next new one, because 8 and 9 were the new ones. And I think volume 10 should be coming out as well at some point, maybe this year, I'm not sure. So yeah, volume 9 actually came out last year. It was one of the ones that I was like, oh, I need to get that, and I just kept putting it off. I got this for a really good price, and that's the reason why. And it's very nicely done. It's got a lovely mini poster insert at the front as well, so lovely artwork. But if I'm totally honest, I had no idea what the story was because I couldn't remember. Obviously I could look up volume 7 and be like, okay, but what happened in volume 8? And I like I read volume 8 when it came out, and that was years ago now, so actually I was like, what's going on? What's happening in the story? And you know what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's Finder. It's the same story every time. Is that really rude of me? Honestly, I was like, oh, this could have been at any point in the story. I like picked it up and read it, and it was like, oh, I'm sure I've read this before. It really felt like that because I was like, oh, I don't actually remember what happened in volume 8, but yeah, this seems about right. So yeah, the characters are kind of just doing what they do. Takaba is at some sort of uh, like temple retreat. He's in hiding. Asami is trying to figure out what's going on in the business world, and Russian mafia people are there, and that character who betrayed him, who's in love with him, like everyone wants his dick. Like everyone wants his dick. It's ridiculous. He should just go around giving it to them all and just be like, right, there you go. Leave me alone, you know? He shouldn't, obviously, but it's kind of like, he's like catnip to all these gangsters. Everyone just wants a piece of him. Wants a specific piece of him. Yeah. Just for Takaba. So yeah, it kind of ends on a bit of a cliffhanger. I'm not going to go into it. I don't want to ruin it for you if you haven't read it yet. It's very much Finder, as you would expect, and it's very beautiful, and he's lovely, and there is always a little smeximus going on as well, which I always enjoy and appreciate, especially if Asami has his shirt off. He is also another semi that I enjoy. Am I giving too much away of myself? Am I? I am. So yes, maybe I have a type. Well built and attractive. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I do enjoy a good Finder volume, and this is a very nice one, and it's very well put together. I'm gonna say something later on, I know, but out of all the Sublime titles that I read for this readathon, this one is the best, due to certain things about the construction of it. But there are definitely some issues later on with some of the Sublime titles I had anyway. But this one is probably the best one in terms of the actual construction. It's cut very nicely, and it seems like it's well put together. So I was very happy to read this volume. So for the third read that I did for the readathon, it was Secret XXX by Meguru Hinohara, also by Sublime, and also translated by Adrian Beck. So yeah, this is the third one. It's a fairly new title. It came out in April. I also got it for a really good price, so I was very happy about that. I may as well just get it out of the way though. As soon as I opened it up, it felt a little bit cheaply made. I know that sounds a bit odd, but I'm just quite sensitive to texture, and weight, and it felt lighter and it felt more kind of fluffy, like the paper was fluffier, and also the edges of the cover and the back aren't cut right. And I know that seems to be a thing with some titles from Sublime recently anyway. It certainly wasn't the case for Finder. Finder was cut nicely, as I said. And also Don't Be Cruel continued to have a weightiness to it, so that after I had read it, it didn't like bounce open. And you can see that I've kind of moved the cover at the bottom to kind of keep the cover from bouncing open. It's going to need to be weighted, I think, under a heavy stack of books to get that back again. And I read them all the same way, so is there something different about this? I don't know. So it just seems like, for some reason, the quality of the construction, i.e. the actual printing and binding process, seems to be a little bit less quality. Even the paper itself felt slightly rougher and more fluffy, and there were more obvious imperfections in the paper. That's maybe just the ones I've been getting, but yeah, it just didn't feel as good as quality as the other ones. So yeah, unfortunately that did kind of colour my reading slightly, because I was like, this feels fluffy, like, you know, like any degree of humidity in the paper would just puff up. That's kind of how it felt. So I don't know why that was. But yeah, anywho, a lovely colour insert at the front, very, very nice. Artwork is gorgeous, the chibis are so cute. The story just speeds along, of course. There's speeds along, and speaking of speeding along, I mean, honestly, it went from confession to smexy times. Like, there was no nothing. It literally was, oh, I really like you, I like you too, boom, bed scene. I was like, that's a bit abrupt. But then they actually do address that, like like the next chapter, and I do like that, because it's kind of like the author is at least self-aware that that's what they chose to do. I'm like, oh well, we won't do months of actual wooing and courting and dating, and we'll just go straight to the bed scene, because it's already been almost a full chapter. We need some smexy good times. Fair enough. So Meguru Hinohara obviously knows her audience, because she does write beautifully. Drawings are just gorgeous, and there's lots of bunnies. It's so cute. So this is the story of Mito, Itsuki, his name's Itsuki, and Shohei, and Shohei's the younger one, and he just kind of ends up falling in love with the bunny shop and Mito, who works at the bunny shop, and they end up falling in love with each other, and that kind of is the story at the start. And then of course there's other things that go into it, and you get introduced to the brothers Minato and Shizuma. And I know that they have their own story coming soon, so that would be good. So you kind of get introduced to the other characters. The granny who runs the shop, who weirdly gets called Ms. Mito by Itsuki, but his name's Mito too, and this was pointed out by someone else on Twitter, and honestly I was like, oh yeah, it's odd, because it doesn't sound quite English. I don't know. It was something that they pointed out when they read it, and I was like, oh, well, I'll look out for that when I'm reading it. And actually, when I was reading it, it did kind of pop up as something that I felt slightly like, nah, yeah. So yeah, there was a little issue there as well, and I do think that she also pointed out that at one point, Minato, I think, calls Itsuki Mito instead of calling him Itsuki, which is a bit odd. So anyway, that's one of those things. Little things, but those little things take me out of my reading experience. But the actual story itself is lovely. It's so well written, it's so beautiful, the story's sweet, it's funny. I really love his mum. Shohei's mum is cool. I love how she has a very lovely, fun and funky character design. Just little details that the mangaka put in that just makes this a really nice story. So yeah, I did enjoy my reading experience. It was very nice, but the actual product itself is slightly, I think, lacking, which sounds pretty bad. But I don't want to be, I don't want to lie. This is how I felt when I read it. I was ever so slightly disappointed because it just felt cheap. And I got it for a bargain, so I didn't feel quite so bad about it. But I was like, nah, oh, it just makes me feel a little bit sad about that. So I'm just going to go on to the last volume that I read for this readathon, but I'm going to put it in here because this is also a Sublime title. And this is Yarichin Bitch Club. This is volume 2 by Cadets Tonica. And I don't know, I must have been really hormonal or I ate something because I was kind of mad reading this. It feels, out of the 4 volumes that I've just presented, this one feels the most cheap and I had the most issues with in terms of the construction. So I may as well just get them out of the way because that's a Sublime thing. Or not even a Sublime thing, but a printer and binder issue. There was a couple of pages in this that had like spotting, so the ink had kind of spotted across the page, and so I mean it's not terribly damaged anyway, and I wouldn't be surprised if other issues had this same problem, that there was just a couple of pages where it looked like an ink splatter kind of thing. It just hadn't been printed to the same quality, or the paper it was printing on was a little bit too rough and not as smooth, and so it didn't come out as pristine as it probably should have done. This is my take on it. And also it seemed like there was an awful lot of pages. It's a big chunky volume, which is why it's, I'm assuming, $9.99. They've seemed to up the price on certain volumes because there's more pages, so it's a bigger volume. But yeah, it seemed as though the binding wasn't as good because the back and the front of this cover is really popping open. I mean, when I compare it to my Don't Be Cruel, it's kind of ridiculous. I'm not going to show you, but Don't Be Cruel is flat as pancake, and I've read it, and this one I've read, and it's like bouncing up. It's really bad. So it just doesn't feel as quality, and of course there was issues. And then there was a translation thing. So this one was translated by Daniel Coleman. There's just a couple of, like, I may as well get the things that I'm annoyed about out of the way first. There's a couple of things that really take a reader out, and that's when it comes to localization. This is just a translation choice. That's fine. That's their choice as the translator, as the editors. But it's a choice, and as a non-North American reader, it goes to show that the choice was made due to either ignorance or a lack of awareness or a lack of care. I don't know. When you choose a turn of phrase that's much more American and not global, because the audience who's buying these products are global. So I personally think that if you're going to be doing a translation, you know, people will be like, hey, yo, it's an American company, get over yourself. Sure, but if you've got the English language rights, you should try to make it as globally acceptable as possible. And that means trying to get rid of things like using bro. This doesn't happen in this one. This doesn't happen in this one. But that's an issue that a lot of people have been talking about, and I was listening to it on the podcast the other day. And it's that whole thing of like, yeah, I hear ya. So there was a translation in this that was very American. There's a couple of American translations that I've come across in manga, and it's just like, oh, that's so American, and grammatically, from an British perspective, incorrect. So that takes me right out the story straight away. So yeah, there was just that one thing, and by then I was already annoyed because the quality of the paper didn't feel great, the quality of the binding didn't feel great, the book was already bouncing open. Then I came across the pages that had the like sort of ink splatter, and it was like 2 pages completely separate, so not right next door to each other, you know. It was like I came across one and it was like, oh, okay, it's not too bad. It just doesn't makes the page not look as nice, and then you come across another one, you're like, oh, that's just sloppy. So then I came across the translation of that line, and it was like, yeah, just ugh. So yeah, there's a few times where you can use translations, and it's just I'm just wondering if anyone actually cares. So the term that is used is he could care less, whereas as a British person we would say he couldn't care less. So as an American you're probably going, well, that's just stupid, you should just get over yourself. But for a British person it's like, oh, straight away it takes you to an American place, because I see that as an Americanism rather than as a global thing. Whereas you could just choose to translate the sentence in a completely different way that didn't involve using that turn of phrase. So, could care less. Well, if he could care less, then he at least cares to some degree. But if he couldn't care less, then he's at the lowest point of caring. This is me getting really like pedantic about things. There's another one as well, I may as well just say it, that is kind of a bit of a bugbear as well, and that is lucked out. Oh, I lucked out and I won the lottery. But whereas in the UK it's the exact opposite. If you lucked out, then there's no way you would have won the lottery, because you have to luck in. You have to have luck. If you're out of luck, you can't win. You see little things that, and that's where I went. As soon as I saw that could care less, I went straight to lots of other American phrases that make no sense in English or are very sort of colloquial in that respect. So yeah, it just kind of made me feel like, oh. Anyway, to actually talk about the story, Yarichin Beach Club. This is volume 2. I don't have volume 1 yet, but because I have watched the lightsaber OVAs, which were very enjoyable, I knew all the characters and I knew what was going on, and this does carry on kind of from there. I knew all the characters, so it's fine. I didn't have any issues with it. So I am looking forward to volume 3, which I think may be out already. But yeah, it's just a ramble about things that I didn't like. But this made me very angry because I just felt like this is a good story, I'm enjoying it, the characters are crazy, it's a bit wacky, someone's obviously put a lot of work into the story, and just little things like the cut of the covers not being lined up properly, the covers bleeding into the spine, and all the little imperfections with its publication. Yeah, so I did not enjoy reading this, but hopefully with volume 3 I will have a better reading experience. So for this readathon I also did a reread of Hiroshima My Hero volume 1 by Mameko Ari, which is a Kodansha comics title, and I think Anne Lee was the translator of this volume. And I really wanted to read this because I went on to read volume 5, which I bought last month. So I really wanted to read this and kind of go back into the story. This is so much nicer, I think, than watching the anime. I really enjoy reading the manga of it. It's much more comedic, its artwork is interesting, it's not quite as polished and smoothed out as the anime, and it does actually follow quite a lot of the anime volume 1, so I'm wondering, like, they could definitely do a second series. There's like probably loads of material. And also I mean, obviously, I'm thinking in my head, obviously there's not like explicit smexiness going on in the anime, and there's a lot more in the manga, and maybe that's why I like it. There's smexiness, yeah, of course. So yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. It follows the other characters. Obviously the start of the anime follows what would have been Hiroshima My Boyfriend, I think that's what it was called, which they didn't publish. I'm kind of wondering why. Maybe we all need to buy this more, so let's all go out and buy it so we can get the other one, because I like sets to be complete. So this follows, instead of Kensuke's story, this follows Kosuke and Setagawa, Setagawa is the blonde one on the cover, and he's kind of like a pretend Yankee. He's just from a not a great home, which makes me feel sad. 'Cause part of this actually does make me feel really quite sad, because it happens. That's what life is. But yeah, and it follows the teacher, and obviously I'm a teacher, so I was like, So it does make me feel ever so slightly uncomfortable. But at the same point, I'm like, nah, whatever. It's fiction. It's cool. But yeah, the kissing in the school definitely would not happen. Should not happen. Definitely not happen. Even in a Japanese school. But yeah, it's fun. I like this. I like reading the manga. I enjoyed it, and I was happy to read this so that I could be prepared to read volume 5. So this is volume 5 of Hiroshima My Hero by Mimiko Ari, and it has a lovely colour insert as well. And yeah, so I bought this last month. I got it for a good price, but there's slight damage on the cover, not massive, and you probably can't even see it from the camera angle, but it's just like a texture issue. And so yeah, it's not terrible. But then like the next day, literally, I saw it for only £1 more than what I paid for it, so I was a bit like, brand new, could have got a brand new. But it's lovely. The artwork on the cover is beautiful as well, and the artwork inside is very fun. The lines are a little bit heavier, and I do like that. Yeah, it's much more of a manga story. I enjoy it. So this follows on from what I assume would be something going on, because I don't have the rest of the volumes. I think probably the anime covers volume 1, 2, maybe even a bit of 3, so I really need to get volume 4. Well, I need to get the rest of them anyway, but I definitely needed to get volume 4. I came into this kind of going, oh, well, something's been going on. Their relationship is a lot more established, but there's also that same thing, like the same thing with Don't Be Cruel. There's now, within the established relationship, there is elements of maybe distrust or a lack of confidence and self-esteem, and therefore that plays up with lack of communication or tensions, and so the relationship needs to be worked at. So this is at the working at stage for their relationship, for Kosuke and Setagawa. So yeah, they end up having maybe some emotional issues because of other people. There's a bit of jealousy. Setagawa seems really really jealous about anyone who's anywhere near Kosuke. Very, very attached, which for me is like, is there attachment issues there? From my teacher's perspective, I'm like, bit of imprinting there, maybe going on. Definitely. So yeah, they end up going on a date. It's quite cute, and they end up going to an onsen, which is also fun and cute. And that's kind of how it ends. It doesn't seem like much goes on, and yet I have to say I really enjoyed it. There was something else about it. It's a different translator. I can't quite remember the name of the translator though, but it's a different translator. So there was just something about reading it. Wasn't quite as enjoyable as volume 1. So it does make me want to go back and get the other volumes, and of course the newer volumes too. This is a series I'm enjoying, so I would like to get the rest of it. So this is the final volume that I read for this readathon, and I absolutely loved it! It's not a BL at all. Silver Spoon Volume 9, Hiromu Arakawa. This is a yen press. Look at that quality. Look at that quality. This I got for second hand. It was just over £5. I'm very pleased about that because I saw on Wordry that a couple of the volumes, the later volumes, were reduced like half price down to £6, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go and get them. And then after I bought this, and then after I went to go get it, one of them had gone back up in price, but the one volume had still remained at £6. So that will come at some point. I don't know when it'll come, but it'll come at some point. So it might be in next month's haul. And there'll be ones in between because I think it's volume 11. I think I might be getting volume 11. So yeah, volume 9. I have read pretty much up to this point anyway in Japanese. One of the people that I worked with is a huge Arakawa fan, and she absolutely loved Silver Spoon. So she, for my birthday, said, "Here, please read all of this." And I was like, "I'm not sure if that's the right kind of, I don't know if it's that a birthday present when it's like, here, read all of these things in Japanese." But mainly it was because she was like, "Read it so we can fangirl together." I really miss her. She's lovely, and she's probably about 15 years older than me, so I'm an old lady already. So when it comes to like fan culture and things that you can enjoy in Japan, it's no barrier. There's no sense of ageism there. That seems to have come up in online discussions and things like that on social media. Whereas in Japan, old lady fans is where it's at. There's respect there. There's respect. You don't diss your old lady fans in Japan. And so yeah, Silver Spoon has a special place in my heart because it has personal connections to people that I love. But also it is just that effing good. I love it. People go on about Fullmetal Alchemist. This is the story. This is the story. And I think the new volume will be coming out, or has come out. I think it's volume 14. I think volume 15 is either coming out or has just come out. Or they're planning the end, and it will be the end of this. And I'm like, oh no. And actually, I'm really surprised because volume 9 has quite a big chunk of what is in the anime. Obviously, I've watched the anime loads. Love it. Just love it. But yeah, right at the end of volume 9 is when you start to go into the bits that weren't animated. So if you have watched the animation and you're like, well, I kind of just want to continue, because they did a really brilliant, faithful rendition of this manga in the anime. It's very, very faithfully done. Very, very nice. So if you want to start continuing on from the anime, volume 9, right at the end, that's where it starts. So it covers some of the anime, and then the rest of like the end, maybe third or quarter, probably about third, is newer material that you haven't. As I said, I read it already in Japanese. I think this was the point where I got to. So I knew something had happened, but I don't know what happens next. So I need to get volume 10, and I just love it. So I'm getting volume 11. I'm wondering, should I just read volume 11? I'm like, no. So I will actually have to just go out there and try and search for a cheap volume 10. Because it's so good. It's such a good volume. It's such good quality. So nicely put together. Just everything about this I love. I love, I love. And I want to recommend it to everyone. It's so perfect. Such a perfect story. And I love all of the characters, and I want them to do well. There were so many great comedic moments in this. Yeah, just go out and buy Silver Spoon. Go do yourself a favour. Yeah, I know I'm like a BL channel, but this is my jam. This is where I'm at. I love this one. This one is the one that I want to recommend to everyone. Go and get Silver Spoon, Hiromu Arakawa. This is the story she really wants to tell. You can tell. This is where her heart is. So yeah, I love this. Go and buy it. So that was everything that I read for the Spring into Manga Love Readathon, and that is hosted by Shaegeeksout. So thank you very much, Shae, for hosting this and giving me an excuse to sit down and actually read for a change. I do have lots of lovely titles here. Most of them are fairly new or new to me, fairly new purchases as well. So it was kind of fun to actually sit down and read nice new titles for a change. So yeah, I'm really happy. I will look forward to doing some more manga readathons, hopefully in the future as well. Take care everyone, bye!